3 days had passed since the Great Lockdown, as the station crew now called it. Life had returned to normal on Outpost Talon 7. Workers went back to their jobs. Guards went back to their patrols. The mess hall was busy with beings eating and talking and laughing. But something had changed. Something important. The Valari looked at humans differently now. Before, they saw humans as fragile allies who needed protection. Now, they saw humans as strange, stubborn creatures who hurt themselves for fun and kept going anyway. It was not less respect. It was different respect. A confused, amazed, slightly worried kind of respect. Elder Mori's cultural briefing had been sent to every datapad on the station. It was titled Human Recreational Injuries and Why They Are Normal. Everyone was required to read it. The briefing explained many things. It explained that humans played sports for exercise and entertainment. It explained that these sports often caused injuries. It explained that humans considered minor injuries like twisted ankles, bruises, and muscle strains to be completely normal. It explained that humans did not need to be rushed to medical every time they said, ouch. Most importantly, it explained that humans would think it was funny if Valari overreacted to small injuries. The briefing asked all Valari to stay calm and ask questions before sounding alarms. In the security office, Commander Rock read the briefing 3 times. He wanted to make sure he understood everything. Lieutenant Bren stood nearby. The humans have a strange culture, he said. Yes, Rock agreed. But it explains much about them. Do you think we will have another lockdown? Not over a twisted ankle. But humans do many strange things. I am sure they will surprise us again. Bran almost smiled. Probably. In her quarters, Yuna's ankle was almost healed. The swelling was gone, and she could walk normally now. She was getting ready for her daily work when she heard a small knock on her door. She opened it and found a package on the floor. There was no one in the corridor. She picked up the package and brought it inside. It was wrapped in soft cloth with a handwritten note on top. The note was written in shaky human script. Some letters were backward, and some words were spelled wrong. But Yuna could read it. Dear human Yuna, I hope your leg is better. This is for next time you jump wrong. From Kira. Yuna smiled and opened the package. Inside was a beautiful ankle brace. It was made of Valari leather, soft and strong. It was perfectly shaped to fit a human ankle. Someone had measured very carefully. She held up the brace and looked at it closely. The craftsmanship was excellent. This was not a cheap gift. Someone had put a lot of time and care into making it. Her eyes felt warm. She blinked a few times. Thank you, Kira, she whispered to the empty room. She put the brace on her shelf where she could see it every day. It was the best gift she had ever received on this station. Later that morning, Yuna found Kira in the common area. The cub was playing with some other Valari children, chasing a ball around the room. When Kira saw Yuna, she stopped playing and ran over. Did you get my present? She asked eagerly. Her tail was wagging so fast it was almost a blur. I did. It is beautiful. Thank you so much. My mother helped me make it. We measured your old bandage when you were not looking. Yuna laughed. That is very clever. Now, when you play your jumping game, you can wear the brace and not get hurt. That is a very good idea. I will definitely wear it. Kira beamed with pride. Then her face became serious. I read the briefing, she said. The one about human injuries. It said humans play many games that hurt them. Is that really true? It is true. Humans like sports. Sometimes we get hurt. But we also have a lot of fun. Can I watch you play sometime? The game with the ball and the net? Yuna thought about it. The human crew had been talking about having another volleyball game soon. It might be nice to have some Valari spectators. Yes, she said. I will invite you to our next game. But you have to promise not to call the guards if someone falls down. Kira giggled. I promise. That evening, Tay found Yuna in the recreation room. She was sitting on a bench, reading something on her datapad. What are you reading? He asked. The cultural briefing Elder Mori wrote. I wanted to see what she said about us. Tay sat down next to her. Is it accurate? Mostly. Although she described rugby as organized combat with unclear rules, that made me laugh. To be fair, rugby does look like organized combat. True. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. The recreation room was empty. It was late, and most beings had gone to sleep. You know, Tay said, I was thinking about what happened. The lockdown and everything. What about it? The Valari locked down an entire station because they thought you were hurt. They sent guards. They launched an investigation. They questioned every being in the area. All because one little cub said you were limping. Yuna nodded. It was very dramatic. It was. But think about what that means. The Valari care about us that much. They really, truly care. One injured human, and the whole station stops. Yuna had not thought about it that way. She had been focused on the confusion and the chaos. But Tay was right. The Valari had moved mountains because they thought a human was in danger. We are lucky to have them as allies, she said softly. We are. And they are lucky to have us, even if we keep scaring them by falling down. Yuna laughed. Speaking of falling down, when is the next volleyball game? Tomorrow night. Are you playing? Yes, Kira wants to watch. Tay raised an eyebrow. You are inviting a Valari cub to watch volleyball? You know someone is going to fall, right? I know. But she promised not to call the guards. Did you make her sign something? Because I feel like we need documentation. Yuna laughed again. It felt good to laugh. The past few days have been stressful, but now everything seemed lighter. Far across the station, Commander Rock sat in his office late at night. He could not sleep. His mind was full of thoughts about humans and their strange ways. He had pulled up more information about human sports. He had watched videos. He had read articles. Each new thing he learned made him more amazed and more confused. There was a sport called boxing, where humans punched each other in the face. There was a sport called skiing, where humans slid down icy mountains at high speeds. There was a sport called surfing, where humans balanced on pieces of wood in the middle of violent ocean waves. And then there was rugby. Rock had watched an entire rugby match. By the end, his fur was standing on end. The humans crashed into each other over and over. They bled. They fell. They got up and kept playing. At the end of the match, both teams shook hands and smiled as if nothing had happened. It was terrifying. It was amazing. It was very, very human. Rock made a decision. He picked up his datapad and created a new entry in the Valari military database. Rugby, he typed. Human recreational activity. Classification. Class 3 human hazard. Description. Organized ground combat using an oval ball. High probability of physical injury to participants. Note, not an actual attack. Do not launch investigation if humans are seen playing this activity. He hesitated, then added one more line. Additional note, if possible, do not watch. It is disturbing. He saved the entry and leaned back in his chair. Humans. He had fought beside them in war. He had learned to respect them. But he was only now starting to truly understand them. They were not fragile. They were not weak. They were beings who had learned to break and heal, to fall and rise, to hurt and keep going. Their bodies were soft, but their spirits were made of something unbreakable. The Valari had tough bodies and high pain tolerance. Humans had tough minds and endless determination. Perhaps that was why the two species worked so well together. ROK smiled to himself in the quiet of his office. It was a rare expression for him. Tomorrow he would watch the volleyball game. He would stand in the corner and observe. He would try to understand what the humans found so fun about hitting a ball over a net, and if someone twisted an ankle, he would not call a lockdown. Probably. On the other side of the station, Kira was already asleep. She was dreaming about volleyball. In her dream, she was playing alongside the humans, jumping and hitting the ball. She fell down and hurt her ankle, but she got up and kept playing. She woke up smiling. Maybe being a little bit like the humans was not such a bad thing after all. 3 weeks passed at the academy. Yuna learned the routines. She woke early and ate alone. She attended classes and took notes. She studied in the library until late at night. She spoke only to Taiho, and sometimes to a shy young student named Soman, who sat 2 rows behind her. Soman was small for a Villani. Her silver skin had patches of pale white, which the others said was a sign of weak blood. She rarely spoke in class, but sometimes she looked at Yuna with curious eyes, like she wanted to ask a question, but was too afraid. Yuna understood that feeling very well. Minho continued to make jokes about humans. He called Yuna the animal and the broken radio. His friends always laughed. Instructor Hannah never said anything to stop him. Perhaps she did not care. Perhaps she agreed with him, but Yuna kept her face calm. She kept her voice steady. She waited. On the first day of the 4th week, Instructor Hannah made an announcement. Tomorrow, we begin the practical examination. You will enter the resonance chamber and summon your fear beast. This is the most important test of your first year. Those who fail will be removed from the program. Those who succeed will take 1 step closer to understanding themselves. The room was silent. Even Minho looked nervous. His hands were tight on his desk. Instructor Hana continued. The resonance chamber is designed to contain emotional energy. When you step inside the summoning circle, your deepest fears will take physical form. You must face your beast and demonstrate control. If you cannot control it, the chamber will protect you, but your score will suffer. Taiho leaned toward Yuna. His voice was a whisper. I have heard stories about this test. Some students go mad. Some never stop screaming. One student, many years ago, was killed by his own beast. Killed? Yuna asked. The chamber failed. It happens sometimes with very powerful emotions. Taiho's face was pale. My older brother took this test. He passed, but he has nightmares every night. He says the beast never really goes away. It just hides, waiting. Yuna looked at her notebook. She had drawn something without thinking. A circle with darkness inside. She closed the notebook quickly. That night, Yuna could not sleep. She lay in her small room and listened to the strange sounds of the alien world outside her window. Birds that were not birds. Wind that smelled like flowers she had never seen. She thought about fear. On Earth, humans learned about fear very young. They were afraid of the dark, afraid of loud noises, afraid of being alone. As they grew older, the fears changed. Death, failure, loss, the endless empty space between the stars. But humans also learned something else. They learned to live with fear. They learned to walk forward even when every part of them wanted to run. They called it courage. They called it strength. But really it was just practice. Thousands of years of practice. Yuna closed her eyes. In the darkness behind her eyelids, something moved. Something old and patient. Something that had been with her since the day she was born. I know you, she whispered to the empty room. I have always known you. The darkness did not answer. But somehow, it felt less cold. The next morning, Cohort 7 gathered outside the resonance chamber. It was a huge building made of black stone. No windows. No decorations. Just smooth walls that seemed to absorb all light. Instructor Hana stood at the entrance. You will enter one at a time. The order has been determined by your emotional output levels. Those with the weakest output will go first. Yuna knew what that meant. She would go last. Her emotional output was considered unstable, wild, unpredictable. The instruments could not measure it properly. Somin was called first. She walked into the chamber with shaking legs. The door closed behind her. For a long time, there was silence. Then a sound came from inside. A high, terrible scream that seemed to last forever. Some students covered their ears. Minho laughed nervously. Taiho closed his eyes. After 10 minutes, the door opened. Somin walked out. Her face was wet with tears. Her body was shaking. But she was alive, and the instructors nodded with approval. Pass, Instructor Hana said. Next, one by one, the students entered the chamber. Some came out quickly. Some took a long time. All of them came out changed. Their eyes were different, haunted, like they had seen something that would stay with them forever. Taiho's turn came near the middle. He looked at Yuna before he entered. Wish me luck. You do not need luck, Yuna said. You are stronger than you know. Taiho smiled weakly and walked inside. The sounds from the chamber were different this time. Not screaming, but crying. Deep, sad crying that made Yuna's chest hurt. She did not know what Taiho feared most, but she could guess. Loneliness. Being forgotten. Being left behind. When he came out, his face was wet. But he held his head high. I faced it, he said quietly. It is still inside me, but I faced it. That is all anyone can do, Yuna told him. Minho's turn came near the end. He walked toward the chamber with his usual confidence, but Yuna could see the truth. His hands were shaking. His breathing was too fast. The door closed. The sounds that came from inside were terrible. Metal grinding against metal. Cold mechanical noises that did not sound like any living thing. And underneath it all, Minho's voice, screaming words that Yuna could not understand. When he came out, his confidence was gone. His face was gray. His eyes were empty. He walked past the other students without looking at anyone. He did not make any jokes. He did not say a single word. Instructor Hana watched him go. Interesting, she said quietly. Then she turned to Yuna. Human, you are last. Every eye turned to Yuna. The students who had already finished their tests. The instructors with their measuring devices. Even Minho, standing far away, looked back at her. Yuna stood up. Her legs were steady. Her heart was calm. Taeho caught her arm. Be careful. Nobody knows what a human fear beast looks like. It could be anything. Yuna nodded. I know. She walked toward the chamber. The black walls seemed to grow taller as she approached. The door was waiting, open just a crack, darkness inside. She thought about what Taiho had said. Nobody knew what a human fear beast looked like. The galaxy had studied thousands of species. They had records of millions of fear beasts. But humans were new. Humans were unknown. And fear, for humans, was something very old. At the door, Yuna stopped. She looked back at the watching crowd. At Taiho's worried face. At Somin, who was crying quietly. At Minho, who looked like a broken toy. They were all afraid. Afraid of their own minds. Afraid of the darkness inside them. They thought fear was an enemy. Something to be controlled. Something to be defeated. But Yuna knew better. She turned back to the door and pushed it open. The darkness swallowed her whole. Inside, the chamber was vast. Much bigger than it looked from outside. The walls stretched up into infinity. The floor was cold and smooth. There was no light, but somehow Yuna could see. She walked to the center of the room. A circle was drawn on the floor in glowing white lines. This was the summoning circle, the place where fear became real. Yuna stepped inside. For a moment, nothing happened. She stood in the darkness and waited. Her breathing was slow. Her mind was quiet. Then she felt it. Something was waking up. Something deep inside her. Something that had been sleeping for a very long time. She closed her eyes and let it come. Outside, the instructors watched their instruments. The readings were strange. The emotional output was rising, but not in the way they expected. It was not chaotic. It was not wild. It was steady, controlled. Ancient. Instructor Hannah leaned forward. Her old eyes narrowed. "What is this?" she whispered. The instruments began to shake. The numbers climbed higher and higher, past any measurement they had ever recorded. And from inside the chamber, something began to move. Inside the chamber, Yuna stood with her eyes closed. The darkness around her was alive. It moved like water. It breathed like a sleeping giant. She waited. Outside, the instruments were going crazy. Instructor Hannah grabbed the arm of a younger teacher. "What is happening? These readings cannot be correct." The younger teacher's hands were shaking. "I do not know. The energy level is beyond anything in our records. It is still rising. It is not stopping." The students watching through the observation window pressed closer. Taiho's face was white with worry. Somin was holding her hands over her heart. Even Minho had moved closer, his fear of Yuna forgotten in his curiosity. "Look," someone whispered. "Something is forming." In the chamber, the air began to split. It started as a small crack, like a line drawn in black ink on black paper. Then the crack grew wider. Light that was not light spilled out. Darkness that was somehow darker than the darkness around it. Yuna opened her eyes. Before her, something was being born. It rose from the floor like smoke. It spread across the ceiling like a storm cloud. It had no fixed shape. One moment it looked like a great beast with 1,000 legs. The next moment it looked like a wave of endless night. The next moment it looked like nothing at all. Just a feeling of cold and empty space. But its eyes were constant. 2 points of dying light. Stars that had burned for billions of years and were now fading into nothing. They looked down at Yuna with a weight that should have crushed her. This was not a fear beast like the others. This was not born from simple terrors. This was something much older, much deeper, much more vast. This was the fear of darkness, the fear of death, the fear of being alone in an infinite universe that did not care if you lived or died. This was the fear that humans felt when they first looked up at the night sky and understood how small they were. This was the first fear, the oldest fear, the fear that had been with humanity since the very beginning. Outside, Instructor Hannah fell back from the observation window. Her face was pale. Her hands were shaking. In 400 years of teaching, she had never seen anything like this. "Impossible," she breathed. "That creature it cannot exist. It is too old, too powerful. How can a human child contain such a thing?" The other teachers did not answer. They were too afraid to speak. The students were frozen. Some of them were crying. Some of them had fallen to their knees. The wave of fear coming from the chamber was so strong that even through the protective walls, they could feel it. Minho was pressed against the far wall, his eyes wide with terror. This was nothing like his fear beast. His creature had been big, yes, and frightening. But it had been understandable. It had been a fear of failure, of weakness. This thing in the chamber was beyond understanding. It was beyond everything. Only Taiho stayed at the window. His body was shaking. Tears were running down his face. But he did not look away. He watched Yuna standing before that impossible creature. and he prayed to every god he knew. Inside the chamber, Una looked up and her fear beast thought it was beautiful. Terrible and beautiful. The way a storm is beautiful. The way a black hole is beautiful. The way death is beautiful when you finally stop running from it. She was afraid. Of course she was afraid. This thing before her was every nightmare she had ever had. Every dark corner. Every empty room. Every moment of silence when she was alone and the universe pressed down on her with its infinite weight. But she had felt this before. Every human had felt this. It was woven into their blood, into their bones, into every story they had ever told. And they had learned something important. Fear was not the enemy. Fear was the oldest friend. Una took a step forward. The creature shifted. Its many eyes focused on her. The darkness around it grew deeper, colder. Any other being would have run. Any other being would have screamed or fought or collapsed. Una took another step. "I know you," she said. Her voice was quiet, but it did not shake. "I have always known you." The fear beast made a sound. It was not a growl. It was not a roar. It was something like a sigh. A long, tired exhale that had been held for 300,000 years. Una reached out her hand. Outside, Instructor Hannah grabbed the emergency controls. "She will be killed. I must break the ritual." Taiho stopped her. He did not know where he found the courage. He just grabbed the old teacher's arm and held tight. "Wait, look." Everyone looked. Inside the chamber, the fear beast was lowering its massive head. Slowly, like a mountain settling into the earth. Its dying star eyes moved down, 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 until they were level with Una's face. Una's hand touched the creature's darkness. It was cold. Cold like space. Cold like the void between galaxies. But underneath the cold, there was something else. Something warm. Something alive. "You have been waiting a long time," Una whispered. "I am sorry. We forgot how to talk to you. We forgot that you were part of us." The fear beast made another sound. Softer this time. Almost gentle. Then it did something that no fear beast had ever done in the history of the Academy. It lay down. Its massive form folded onto the floor like a dog finding its favorite spot by the fire. Its thousand shapes settled into one. A great beast. Something like a wolf and something like a shadow, with eyes like fading stars. It curled its body around Una's legs, and it rested its enormous head on the cold ground. And it closed its eyes. It slept. The silence outside. The chamber was absolute. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Instructor Hana's hand fell away from the emergency controls. Her mouth was open, but no words came out. Taiho pressed his hand against the window. Tears were still running down his face, but now he was smiling. "She did it," he whispered. "She actually did it." Inside, Una looked down at the sleeping creature. Slowly, carefully, she lowered herself to the ground. She sat beside the fear beast and rested her hand on its shifting flank. It was still cold. It would always be cold. But the cold did not hurt her. "It is okay," she murmured. "I know you. You have been with my people since the beginning. When we hid in caves and the night was full of teeth. When we crossed oceans and did not know if there was land on the other side. When we looked up at the stars and felt so small that we wanted to disappear." The fear beast made a soft sound in its sleep. Something like a purr. Something like a sigh of relief. "You thought we would run away. Every other species did. They saw you and they fled to the light. They built walls to keep you out. They invented 1,000 ways to pretend you did not exist." Una stroked the creature's dark fur. "But we stayed. We could not run. We did not have claws or wings or speed. All we had was each other and you. So we learned to live with you. We gave you names. We told stories about you. We made you into monsters and gods and lessons for our children." She smiled. It was a small, tired smile. And somewhere along the way, we stopped being enemies. You became our companion, the shadow that walks beside us, the voice that reminds us to be careful, to be brave, to keep moving forward. The fear beast's eyes opened for just a moment. Those dying stars looked up at Yuna with something that might have been gratitude, or love, or simply recognition. Then they closed again, and the creature slept on. Outside, the instruments had stopped making noise. The readings were calm, stable. The energy in the chamber was still immense, but it was not chaotic. It was peaceful. Instructor Hannah found her voice at last. It was barely a whisper. In all my years, in all the records of this academy, I have never seen a fear beast sleep. They are supposed to fight. They are supposed to rage. They are supposed to be controlled through strength and will. She looked at the young human girl sitting on the floor, petting her monster like it was a beloved pet. "What is she?" Instructor Hannah asked. "What are humans?" Nobody had an answer. The door of the chamber opened. Yuna walked out, and the fear beast walked beside her. It had shrunk somehow, fitting itself to her size. It moved like her shadow, quiet and patient. The students backed away. Even Taiho stepped back, though his eyes were full of wonder. Yuna stopped in front of Instructor Hana. Her face was calm. Her voice was steady. "Did I pass?" For a long moment, the old teacher could not speak. Then, slowly, she nodded. "Yes, child. You passed." 2 days after the test, Yuna received a message. Instructor Hannah wanted to see her in private. The old teacher's office was in the highest tower of the academy, a place where students rarely went. Yuna climbed the long stairs alone. Her fear beast was still with her, though most of the time it stayed hidden. It moved in her shadow, quiet and patient, like a loyal dog waiting for its master to need it. The door to the office was made of dark wood. Real wood, not the synthetic materials used everywhere else. Yuna knocked twice. "Enter," came Instructor Hana's voice. The office was smaller than Yuna expected. Books covered every wall, old paper books with cracked spines and faded titles. A single window looked out at the purple sky. Instructor Hannah sat behind a desk made of the same dark wood as the door. She looked tired, older than before, like the last 2 days had taken years from her life. "Sit down, child," she said, pointing to a chair. Yuna sat. She waited. Instructor Hannah studied her for a long moment. Her deep water eyes moved over Yuna's face, searching for something. Finally, she spoke. "I have taught at this academy for 400 years. I have seen students from every corner of the galaxy. I have watched them face their fear beasts and learn to control them. Some succeeded. Many failed. But all of them, every single one, fought against their fear." She leaned forward. "You did not fight. Your beast did not attack you. It lay down at your feet like a tired child. How is this possible?" Yuna thought carefully before answering. This was important. She knew that her words here would change how the galaxy saw humans forever. "May I tell you a story?" she asked. Instructor Hannah raised one thin eyebrow. "A story?" Humans learn through stories. It is how we understand ourselves. The old teacher nodded slowly. "Very well. Tell your story." Yuna looked out the window at the alien sky. She began to speak. "A long time ago, on Earth, humans were not the strongest creatures. We had no claws, no armor, no venom. We could not fly. We could not breathe underwater. We were soft and slow and weak. The world was full of things that wanted to eat us. So you evolved to fight," Instructor Hana said. "As all species do." Yuna shook her head. "No, we evolved to fear. Fear was our greatest gift. It told us when to hide. It told us when to run. It told us when the shadow in the grass was a predator and when it was just the wind. Fear kept us alive when everything else should have killed us. She paused, remembering lessons from her childhood. History classes on Earth, stories her grandmother told her about the old days. But fear was not just a warning system. It was part of us. Every night, when the sun went down, we felt it. The darkness was not empty to us. It was full of eyes and teeth and hunger. We could not escape it. We could not pretend it was not there. So you learn to control it, Instructor Hana said. Like all advanced species. No, Yuna said again. We learn to live with it. There is a difference. She turned back to face the teacher. Other species, when they became advanced enough, found ways to push fear away. They built bright cities with no shadows. They created technologies to protect themselves from every danger. They told themselves that fear was primitive, something to be overcome and forgotten. Yuna's voice grew soft. But humans could not do that. Our world was too dangerous. Our bodies were too weak. No matter how advanced we became, there was always something to be afraid of. Disease, war, famine, the endless cold of space, death. We could never escape fear. So we had to find another way. Instructor Hannah was listening very carefully now. Her tired eyes had become sharp and focused. We made friends with our fear, Yuna said. We gave it names. The boogeyman, the reaper, the darkness. We told stories about it to our children, not to make them more afraid, but to teach them that fear was normal. That everyone felt it. That it was okay to be scared, as long as you kept moving forward. She smiled, remembering bedtime stories from her childhood. Fairy tales about monsters. Horror movies that made people scream and then laugh with relief when the lights came on. We even learned to enjoy our fear. We told scary stories around campfires. We built rides that made our hearts race. We watched movies that terrified us and called it entertainment. Fear became something we could play with. Something we could share. Instructor Hannah stood up from her desk. She walked to a shelf and pulled down a very old book. The pages were yellow with age. I have been researching Sir Test, looking for anything that might explain what happened. She opened the book and placed it on the desk. The pages showed a picture. A creature of darkness with eyes like dying stars. The first fear. The same creature Yuna had summoned. This is the oldest fear beast we have ever recorded, Instructor Hana said. It appeared at the beginning of our history, when the first Villani became intelligent enough to feel fear. Our ancestors were so terrified of it that they fled their home world. They traveled across the galaxy to escape it. All of our culture, all of our technology, was built on the desire to get away from this creature. She looked at Yuna with new eyes. But you summoned this same creature, and it slept at your feet. Yuna nodded. Because we never ran away. Humans stayed with our fear. When we looked up at the stars and felt how small we were, we did not flee. We were terrified, yes, but we also learned to love the terror. We made songs about it, poems, paintings. We turned our fear into art. She stood up and walked to the window. Her shadow moved with her, and in the shadow, something stirred. Her fear beast, waiting patiently. Every human carries the first fear inside them. We are born with it. The fear of darkness. The fear of being alone. The fear of death. It is woven into our blood. We cannot separate ourselves from it any more than we can separate ourselves from our own heartbeat. She turned back to Instructor Hana. But that is why we are strong. Because we do not fight our fear. We do not run from it. We carry it with us everywhere we go. It is our oldest companion. Our truest friend. Instructor Hannah was silent for a long time. She looked at the old book, at the picture of the first fear. Then she looked at Yuna, this small human girl who had done something impossible. The galaxy has always thought humans were primitive, the teacher said slowly. We thought your chaotic emotions were a weakness. We thought your constant fear meant you were unstable, dangerous. She shook her head. We were wrong. We were afraid of the wrong thing. What do you mean? Yuna asked. Instructor Hana closed the book. We were afraid of your fear. We saw how strong it was, how constant, and we assumed it would destroy you. We did not understand that you had already made peace with it, that you had tamed something we have been running from for 10,000 years. She looked at Yuna with something new in her eyes, respect, and maybe a little fear. Humans are not primitive. You are ancient. Your relationship with fear is older than any civilization in the galaxy. You have carried that creature inside you for 300,000 years, and instead of being destroyed by it, you learned to love it. Yuna smiled. It was a sad smile, full of old memories. We had no choice. On our world, in our bodies, with our limitations, fear was the only thing that kept us alive. So we learned to thank it, to honor it, to treat it as a friend instead of an enemy. She called her fear beast out of the shadows. It emerged slowly, taking shape beside her. The creature was smaller now, about the size of a large dog. It pressed against her leg like a loyal pet. This is not my enemy, Yuna said, resting her hand on the creature's head. This is my guardian. It warns me of danger. It keeps me careful. It reminds me that I am mortal, that my time is short, that I must make every moment count. Instructor Hana watched the fear beast close its eyes in contentment. The other species will need to know this. The Galactic Council, the elder races. They have been afraid of humans since we first made contact. They have been waiting for you to destroy yourselves with your wild emotions. Tell them the truth, Yuna said. Tell them that humans are not wild. We are just different. We carry our darkness with us, and we have learned to walk in the light anyway. The old teacher nodded slowly. I will, but I do not know if they will believe me. This challenges everything we thought we knew about emotional evolution. Yuna smiled and walked toward the door. Her fear beast moved with her, silent and patient. They will believe you when they see it for themselves. Fear cannot hide forever, and neither can truth. She left the office and walked down the long stairs. The purple sky was darkening toward night. Somewhere in the academy, her classmates were preparing for sleep, facing their own nightmares. But Yuna was not afraid of the dark. She never had been. The dark was where her oldest friend lived. Weeks passed at the academy. The news spread slowly at first, then faster and faster, like a stone dropped into still water. The ripples reached every corner of the galaxy. A human had summoned the first fear, the creature that ancient species still had nightmares about. The monster that had driven entire civilizations to flee across the stars. And she had made it sleep at her feet like a tired pet. The reactions were mixed. Some species refused to believe it. They called the Academy recordings fake, impossible, a trick designed to make humans seem more important than they were. Others were afraid. If humans could tame the first fear, what else could they do? What other darkness lived inside them? But a few, a very few, began to wonder if they had been wrong about humans all along. At the Academy, things changed for Yuna. Students who had ignored her before now nodded when she passed. Teachers who had dismissed her as a curiosity now asked for her opinions in class. Even the staff who cleaned the halls looked at her differently, with something between awe and confusion in their eyes. Minho changed most of all. One morning, Yuna found him waiting outside her room. He looked smaller than before. The pride that had made him seem so tall was gone. In its place was something softer, something broken. I wanted to apologize, he said. His voice was quiet. He did not look at her face. I said terrible things about humans. About you. I was wrong. Yuna studied him for a moment. Why were you so cruel to me? Minho was silent for a long time. When he spoke, his words came slowly, like they hurt to say. I was afraid. My family has always been powerful. We have always been the best. When I heard a human was coming to the academy, I was terrified. What if she was better than me? What if she made my family look weak? He finally looked up. His eyes were wet. When I saw your fear beast, I understood. My fear was so small, so selfish. I was afraid of losing my position, my reputation. But you carry the fear of death itself, and you treat it like a friend. I am nothing compared to that. Yuna shook her head. You are not nothing, Minho. Your fear is real. It matters. Every fear matters. How can you say that? He asked. After how I treated you. Yuna smiled gently. Because I understand fear. All fear comes from the same place. The fear of being hurt. The fear of being alone. The fear of not being good enough. These are not weaknesses. They are signs that you care about something. That you want to protect something. She put her hand on his shoulder. You were cruel because you were scared. Now that you understand your fear, you can learn from it. You can be better. Minho's tears fell freely now. I do not know how. Start by forgiving yourself, Yuna said. Then try again tomorrow. She walked past him toward the food hall. Behind her, she heard him crying softly. But it was the good kind of crying. The kind that came before healing. Taiho was waiting for her at their usual table. Somin was there too, sitting closer than she ever had before. Her pale patches had faded, and her eyes were brighter. Everyone is talking about you, Taiho said as Yuna sat down. The other academies, the elder councils, even the news feeds. You are the most famous student in the galaxy. Yuna picked up her food. It was something like a fruit, blue and sweet. I do not want to be famous. I just want to learn. Somin leaned forward eagerly. Tell us more about Earth, about humans. How do you live with so much fear? Yuna thought about the question. We do not think about it most of the time. Fear is just there, like breathing. We feel it every day, in small ways and big ways. When we cross a busy street, when we meet someone new, when we say something honest and wait to see how others will react. She took a bite of the fruit. But we also have joy, love, wonder. Fear does not stop us from feeling those things. It makes them more precious. Because we know that everything ends eventually, we learn to treasure what we have. Taiho nodded slowly. That is very different from how we are taught. Valani children learn that fear is an enemy. We spend our whole lives trying to defeat it. And does it work? Yuna asked. Taiho was quiet. He looked at his hands, at the table, at the other students eating their meals. No, he said finally. The fear is always there. We just pretend it is not. Maybe that is why you are afraid of us, someone said softly. We fear your fear because we cannot hide from our own. Yuna reached across the table and took both their hands. You do not have to hide anymore. I can teach you, if you want, how to sit with your fear, how to listen to it, how to make it your friend instead of your enemy. Taiho and Somin looked at each other. Then they both nodded. That evening, Instructor Hana called a special assembly. The entire academy gathered in the Great Hall, a vast space with a ceiling that showed the real stars above. Thousands of students from hundreds of species sat in circles around a central stage. Instructor Hana walked to the center alone. She looked older than ever, but her voice was strong. For 10,000 years, this academy has taught one lesson about fear. We have told you that fear is the enemy, that you must control it, suppress it, defeat it. that the measure of a civilized being is their ability to silence the darkness inside them. She paused. The hall was completely silent. Today, I am telling you that we were wrong. A murmur ran through the crowd. Students whispered to each other. Some looked shocked. Some looked angry. But all of them listened. 3 weeks ago, a human student performed the fear beast ritual. What she did has forced me to reconsider everything I thought I knew about emotional evolution. Instructor Hana gestured toward the back of the hall. Yuna Park, please come forward. Yuna stood up. She walked through the crowd, feeling thousands of eyes on her. Her fear beast walked beside her, visible now, a shadow with eyes like dying stars. The students nearest to her pulled back in fear. Some of them made sounds of terror. But Yuna kept walking, and her beast walked with her. Calm and quiet, she climbed the stage and stood beside Instructor Hana. The old teacher put a gentle hand on her shoulder. Look at this creature, Instructor Hana said. This is the first fear, the oldest terror known to any species. Our ancestors fled across the galaxy to escape it. We built civilizations to hide from it. We taught our children that it would destroy them if they ever faced it. She looked down at the fear beast. It was sitting now, leaning against Yuna's leg, its eyes half closed in contentment. But humans never ran. They could not run. They were too weak, too slow, too vulnerable. So they did something that no other species has ever done. They made peace with their fear. They learned to carry it with them. They turned the first fear into a companion instead of an enemy. Instructor Hana turned to face the audience. We thought humans were primitive because they felt so much fear. We were wrong. They are not primitive. They are wise. They understood something that we, with all our technology and civilization, forgot long ago. Yuna spoke then. Her voice was soft, but somehow it filled the entire hall. Fear is not your enemy. It never was. Fear is a part of you, as real as your heartbeat. You cannot cut it out. You cannot silence it forever. The harder you fight it, the stronger it becomes. She looked around at the thousands of faces watching her. Some were still afraid. Some were confused. But some, she could see, were starting to understand. The secret is not to fight your fear. The secret is to thank it. Fear keeps you alive. It warns you of danger. It tells you what matters to you, what you love so much that you are afraid to lose it. Your fear is trying to protect you. It always has been. She knelt down and put her arms around her fear beast. The creature made a soft sound and pressed closer to her. When you stop fighting your fear and start listening to it, something amazing happens. It stops being your enemy. It becomes your friend, your guardian, your guide. She stood up again. Humans have walked with fear for 300,000 years. It has not destroyed us. It has made us stronger, kinder, more grateful for every moment of peace and happiness. Because we know how dark the darkness can be, we treasure the light all the more. Instructor Hana stepped forward. From today, I am changing the curriculum. We will no longer teach students to fight their fear beasts. We will teach them to understand them, to listen to them, to make peace with them. She looked at Yuna with warm, grateful eyes. Humanity has given us a gift today, the gift of a new way of seeing ourselves. Let us honor that gift by learning from it. The assembly ended in silence. But it was not the silence of fear. It was the silence of thinking, of changing, of growing. Later that night, Yuna stood outside the academy and looked up at the alien stars. They were beautiful, so different from Earth's sky, yet somehow the same. Points of light in an endless darkness. Her fear beast sat beside her, watching the sky with its dying star eyes. It seemed content, peaceful, maybe even happy. Taihao found her there. He stood beside her without speaking. Someone came next, then other students, one by one. They formed a small circle around Yuna, all of them looking up at the stars. Are you afraid? Taiho asked quietly. Yuna smiled. The darkness pressed around them, vast and cold and infinite. Somewhere out there, terrible things waited. Dangers they could not imagine. Challenges that would test them to their limits. Yes, she said. I am always afraid. Her fear beast stirred beside her. She rested her hand on its head, feeling the cold and the warmth beneath. And I have never let that stop me. The stars shone on. The darkness stretched forever,